This is Michael Popok, and you're on Legal AF MTN YouTube channel. Take a moment and free subscribe. Help us get to 200,000 by this weekend of subscribers. We're building it in collaboration with the Midas Touch Network. I'm curating the channel at the intersection of law and politics, and we got a new bombshell that's in the Washington Post coming out of Sheldon Whitehouse, Senator from Rhode Island, and the Judiciary Committee. After 8 years of investigation, we finally know the truth. Donald Trump and his White House blocked completely the FBI from doing a proper investigation into the sex assault and sex harassment charges being made against then candidate for the Supreme Court, Brett Kavanaugh, now Justice Kavanaugh, who, based on this new reporting, should never have been anywhere near the White House or near the Supreme Court, let alone confirmed. We have an example right here that's now in the report after 8 years. Direct correspondence between the White House and the FBI shutting down the investigation and not allowing them to pursue any of the 4,500 tips that came in on the hotline from the FBI, let alone interview anyone who claimed to have knowledge under oath that they were assaulted or attacked sexually by Brett Kavanaugh in high school, in college, and in law school. There were at least 3 witnesses, one at each level, high school, college, and law school, who under oath swore that Brett Kavanaugh either jumped them, attacked them without their permission, women and men, roommates who observed it. The only one person you may remember who testified at it was Dr. Blasey Ford, now a psychotherapist, who testified tearfully, authentically, that she was attacked sexually by Brett Kavanaugh. Now, he denied it with his teary fake crocodile thing, but the reality is that the FBI was shut down by the Trump administration and by Donald Trump himself from doing any investigation of the 4,500 tips that came in, and none of the 3 people, Ms. Ramirez, Dr. Blasey Ford, or a roommate for Kavanaugh, were even interviewed by the FBI. Only Blasey Ford testified, but after she testified and Kavanaugh's candidacy was on the ropes, Donald Trump shut down, along with Mitch McConnell, shut down all other avenues to properly vet Brett Kavanaugh. And nobody was vetted. In fact, the senators, because of Mitch McConnell working with Donald Trump once again as the head of the evil empire, he only postponed the confirmation hearing and / vote by about 72 hours. The FBI was not given any commander instructions by Donald Trump to do an investigation, even though publicly, here we go, Donald Trump lying to the public. Publicly, Donald Trump was telling the public, I want a full and fair investigation. I want full vetting. I want the FBI to interview everybody. The FBI interviewed no one, not even Blasey Ford, Dr. Blasey Ford, let alone Ms. Ramirez, let alone the roommate. Nobody was interviewed. Instead, the senators were given 1 hour with a 1,600-page raw data printout, not even summarized, not analyzed by the FBI, just the raw data from the FBI tip line, from the hotline. Okay, not even a special hotline, just the hotline you do when you say or see something, when you see or say something, that hotline. Okay, and that's all they were given by Mitch McConnell, who stampeded them into a vote and shut down that investigation. And now we've got the fingerprints directly by the Trump White House on the shutdown of the investigation to get Kavanaugh confirmed. Why? Because Kavanaugh was and is the darling of the National Rifle Association, the NRA, and Second Amendment advocates. They wanted him to be the critical vote to expand Second Amendment rights, to get rid of restrictions and gun regulation, and he's done exactly that. He has delivered. And they wanted him up there because they saw him as a reliable vote to get rid of Roe versus Wade, despite the fact that during his confirmation hearing, he lied again. Not only lied, based on this report from the Senate, that he'd never sexually assaulted or attacked a woman against her will, but he also lied that he would never touch a super precedent case for 50 years like Roe versus Wade. As soon as he could, and they had the numbers in the Dobbs decision 2 years ago, March, they ripped away a woman's right to choose enshrined in the Constitution for over 50 years. That's why they wanted Kavanaugh confirmed. That's why they wanted the White House working with McConnell wanted to shut down any real investigation, not all investigation, any investigation. And the reason it took this long to bring this out, I mean, it's like 6 years, like since 2018. Why? because stonewalling by the Trump administration at the time, stonewalling by the FBI, frankly, and the Senate just couldn't get to the bottom of it. In fact, the reporting in the Washington Post is that it took an instructional video on YouTube about how to make an FBI hot tip to guide the senators in their investigation. I mean, kudos, shout out, chef's kiss to YouTube. You're here, so you know the value there. This is exactly what happened, 35 years ago or so with Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas, who was a middling lawyer and attorney, originally for the EEOC, a judge. Nobody could figure out how he got there to replace Thurgood Marshall, of all things, in an African-American chair. Anita Hill came out against him and testified tearfully under oath to the Senate committee at the time and said that she was sexually abused and sexually in a sexual hostile work environment led by her boss at the EEOC, the Equal Opportunity Employment Agency, by the name of Clarence Thomas, that it was pornographic, that he would talk about his likes and dislikes in pornography, and that he would make other inappropriate suggestions to her, pornographic suggestions to her. But nobody wanted to hear that. Everybody shut it down. It's so long ago, Joe Biden was on the Judiciary Committee when that happened. And Anita Hill, who's now who has been for a long time, a law professor, you had to believe her. There was no other choice other than Ginny Thomas sitting there every day, who just recently had gotten out of a cult and got back into a new one, apparently, with MAGA, and Clarence Thomas, who sat there and said, this is a high-tech lynching, because he was a black man. Same thing with Kavanaugh. This theory, I never touched a woman against her will. Well, 4,500 tips to a hotline beg to differ. But now we've got it, the fingerprints we were looking for. Here's what the lawyers for Ford Blasey had to say, and I think they put it just right. They said, this is Deborah Katz and Lisa Banks, two lawyers representing Blasey Ford. The congressional report published today confirms what we long suspected. The FBI supplemental investigation of then-nominee Brett M. Kavanaugh was, in fact, a sham effort directed by the Trump White House to silence brave victims and other witnesses who came forward to hide the truth. Ms. Ramirez's lawyer said the same thing. Sheldon Whitehouse has gone further. He said, point blank, the White House and Trump gave that investigation a proper burial at the White House, never to see the light of day because they needed Kavanaugh to be confirmed. Kavanaugh shouldn't be anywhere near the Supreme Court. He shouldn't be allowed there on a guest pass, on a tour pass, let alone standing in judgment of women, especially, and their values and their decisions and their reproductive rights. Brett Kavanaugh, Clarence Thomas. This is another badge of dishonor for Chief Justice Roberts. What's going on there, man? What are you running? Is this a Animal House? Is this a frat? Is the frat being led by Alito, Thomas, and Kavanaugh? This Supreme Court is circling the drain of history, and what's his name? Chief Justice Roberts is the captain of that sinking ship. So we knew at the time that the interviews had not been taking place. I mean, the FBI didn't even interview the three of them, Ramirez, Blasey Ford, or the roommate. The only way we know about Blasey Ford is because her lawyers brought her in and she testified in front of the Senate. But she was never interviewed by the FBI. Nobody else was either. So people can say, well, Donald Trump said they'd all be interviewed. None were interviewed because he commanded and directed that they not be interviewed. This shows you what happens when in the executive branch there's no independence for the FBI, no independence for the Department of Justice, and you have this out of control rogue president, right? This unitary president with his powers weaponizing everything, telling the FBI, cut off that investigation, don't do that investigation. I'm not authorizing you to do that investigation. And then you couple that on the other side with the helping hands of Senator Mitch McConnell, who cut the whole thing down after 72 hours, wouldn't allow really any more interviews or anybody else to testify. There wasn't even enough time for Miss Ramirez to testify, or the roommate who observed it all from high school and otherwise for Kavanaugh. That's why you have no memory of their interviews, because they didn't give testimony. And instead it was a data dump. Boom. 1,600 pages on the desk of every senator who had a vote given 1 hour to do the vote. We got to shine a light on this. Sunshine is the best antiseptic. That's why we have this new collaboration with Midas Touch Network and Court Accountability Action. Court Accountability Action, led by Alex Aronson, who used to be the chief counsel for the Senate Judiciary Committee in Sheldon White House. They're working on these kind of investigative reportings. They're getting reported in places like the Washington Post and Legal AF MTN. So join us. And if you like this kind of content, all you got to do is subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. Help us get to 200,000. We're building this channel with our bare hands in real time as a parallel channel to the Midas Touch Network. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok, and I am reporting. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.